Hey guys, it's Chris from Font of Inspiration. This is hopefully just a quick video response to Tim from Samwise7RPG and specifically his video Tim's 13 RPG questions. I will do my best to answer the questions presented to me. Okay, let's start with number 1. Can you please describe in detail any negative situations that came about in your life because you played RPGs? For example, were you ever bullied, belittled, made fun of, told you were going to hell because you played those games, etc.? So personally, I got into RPGs around 2007. That was right after my military service. So there wasn't really any bullying or teasing involved at that age. RPGs had some stigma even here in Finland in the 80s and 90s, but that was, well, quite a bit before my time. At least my time playing. I had borrowed some RPG material as a kid in the early mid 90s from our local library. I remember I loved the Cyberpunk 2020 book because, well, I liked the illustrations, and I had never picked up a Gibson book or any cyberpunk book at the time, but I was just really drawn to the whole jacking in and decking kind of thing. Never understood a word of the rules, but you know, I like the ideas, like the characters and the city and the weapons and the gadgets. But yeah, that's my first kind of experience of RPGs without actually playing. But 2007 was the year that I really started playing, and the game was D&D, but I'll get back to that in one of the later questions. I don't think that there was one of the reasons why I wasn't teased or bullied because of RPGs was, well, first of all, I wasn't super vocal about it. It was kind of a private hobby. Second, I was old enough not to be teased. That's kind of more of a thing you experience at a young age. And thirdly, I think RPGs and gaming in general is really accepted these days. It's especially now that with RPGs, now that 5th edition D&D is out, has been out for a couple of years now. It's crazy. It's like the 80s again when everyone knows about D&D. Well, sort of everyone knows about D&D. And I think RPGs might be more accepted now than they ever were. But then again, I haven't experienced the 80s, so someone with more knowledge about that could probably answer this better. That was long-winded. To question 2. What skills do you think you have personally improved upon by playing RPGs? To be honest, several, I think. Well, first of all, I'm more confident at interacting with people, new people I've never met before. I'm better at coming up with stuff on the fly, I think. GMing really forces you to think on your feet. I think my writing, my characters, my sense of pacing, all of these kind of narrative things have improved greatly. I'm not saying I'm good or great by any stretch, but they've improved from what they were. I think I'm more open-minded towards other people, other play styles, other ways of telling a story. It's not just my way or the highway. I think I've also learned to look at the big picture a little bit better. And by that I mean that I'm not just focusing on what I want to accomplish as a GM, the story I want to tell, but I'm also striving to help the players achieve what they want in the game and get what they want out of the game. So, question 3. Who introduced you to RPGs and what was your first experience like playing them? Now, this friend of mine I met after the army introduced me to D&D 3.5. Now, this was 2007, so the 3.5 had been out for, 4 years? I had always known about D&D, or at least as far back as I can remember. I mean, it's in E.T. I don't think they mention it in E.T., but we can see them playing it, and I always kind of saw it in here and there in films and media, and heard the name, but didn't really know any details or what it was exactly like. So this friend of mine showed me the ropes and taught me how to play. I joined his home group. We played for many years. He doesn't play as much these days because of, family obligations and just life getting in the way. But we still see each other regularly and we're still very good friends. So that's something that came out of me playing RPGs. Question number 4. What was your first experience like running a game? Extremely overscripted, for one thing. I had written lines for every major NPC at least, like reading them verbatim from the sheet I had, and that's something I never ever do. I don't write any lines for any NPCs ever these days. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If you have a very grandiose and eloquent speech you want to convey to the players, that's fine. Go ahead. If you're in kind of a monologue mode, go for it. That's just something I can't do anymore because I have to focus so much on the script that it doesn't sound natural anymore in any way. Other than the scripted, the over-scripting, I think it went surprisingly well for my first time as a GM, and I don't think there were any major problems besides the over-scripting. But I wish I would have thought on my feet more and just left more to like the situation and not try to pre-plan everything. Wish I would have had all the videos on index card session planning like at that time. Whew, I would have needed those. Yeah. So I guess it was a tad railroaded because of the whole pre-planned thing, but it wasn't too bad. It was okay. Question number 5. What was it like designing your own system? This doesn't really apply to me because I haven't designed an RPG system yet. At least from scratch. I've just tinkered around with some stuff, some pre-made stuff like my own Fallout 5th edition conversion. But that's pretty much it. Question number 6. What was it like making your own setting? Now, this is kind of a new thing for me. I only started making my very own setting last Christmas, around that time. It was very liberating in the sense that although GMs are always free to modify published settings to their heart's content, there's no one stopping you from changing stuff in the Forgotten Realms or Eberron or whatever setting you're using. I still kind of felt that I was breaking the canon. That I know it seems a bit stupid because anyone can break the canon. It doesn't matter. It's your setting when you're playing in it. But I still kind of felt that I was playing in an alternate version of the official world. So I kind of wanted to make a world that was only ours, only our game groups, and everything we do is canon, and that's all that matters, if you see what I mean. Another cool thing about making your own setting is no one knows more than you do about the setting. Now, a published setting, a fan of that setting, for instance, might know it inside and out, and maybe mention stuff you've never heard of, and you're like, yeah, that place is over there. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's go there. I mean, in my setting, no one can be like, okay, let's go to the Moonshay Isles when I'm trying to craft an adventure in Cormyr, which would be what could happen in the Forgotten Realms. So in that sense, it kind of helps me focus on a slice of the world that's relevant to the characters at that time, and I don't overload them with information about this whole pre-existing setting. So those are a few of the things that I think are kind of convenient in writing your own setting. And question number 7, why do you think tabletop RPGs are not known about by a good many people in the public? Well, these days with celebrities like Will Wheaton and the folks at Penny Arcade, Alison Hayslip, Matt Mercer, those kind of people, I think through them, RPGs and I guess especially D&D have become, well, more widely known than they used to be. Maybe they were in the 80s. Again, I can't really say. But I think that the kind of all the fans of geek culture have some idea of what role playing is, and even tabletop RPG games, not just video game role playing. And I think even the general public has some kind of concept of what role playing means. But still, I think RPG awareness is somewhat limited by the fact that although geek culture is such a big thing now, and gaming too, they're both very mainstream these days, they both still have a sort of a niche image. And I think that's something that might seem a bit kind of exclusive or elitist to some people. And also, sometimes people don't really understand what role playing is. Even though I just said that probably most people have some kind of concept of role playing, sometimes they get different types of role playing mixed up. For instance, a lot of people think that tabletop RPGs are LARPing, or the other way around, or people mix stuff up. Then people who might not be so into things like LARPing, acting out the role physically, might just completely dismiss tabletop RPGs because they think that they're the same thing. And for some reason, LARPing still has a lot more stigma attached to it than tabletop RPG games. But who knows, maybe that'll go away someday. On to question 8. What is an RPG and why are these types of games fun? Well, first of all, I think an RPG is a game where you create a character. A character that is usually someone other than yourself. It might have features or elements from you, but probably will. But it's someone a bit more kind of amplified than who you are, or at least different in some way. It could be someone you wish you could be. It could be someone you never want to be. Someone completely vile. That's kind of the cool thing about role playing. You can be anyone. You can try out different personalities and be different people and see what that would be like. So it's completely up to you. You kind of try to see the world through this character's eyes and immerse yourself in the world that they inhabit. So essentially, to kind of varying degrees based on preference, you become that character for a while. Some people like to become the character a bit more, some people a bit less. Some people talk in the first person as their character, some people just describe what their character does. There's degrees of variation there, but essentially you are stepping into the shoes of that character. I think that's what RPGs boil down to. Then again, there are so many video games these days that fall under the RPG genre, but maybe sometimes they just have very surface level RPG elements, like maybe some equipment system or character creation system or leveling up, those kinds of things. But then again, they might not have any role playing per se, any kind of playing as the character. Also, to me, in order to truly be an RPG, I think a game has to involve some kind of decision making and an opportunity for the character to influence the environment around them, maybe even change the world that they're in. and to interact with other people, affect their lives, shape the world. Question 9. If you were going to teach a new player how to play RPGs, how would you go about doing that? I would probably either use a fairly easy to pick up system like D&D 5th edition or Fate or something like that. The Fate has a bit more to do on the GM side, but I think it's kind of easy on the player. And then go with that. Or use a lighter, maybe board game based RPG-ish game like Dragon Strike or Hero Quest, something like that has RPG elements to teach some basic concepts, mechanics wise. That is if they understand how to roleplay and they just need some help understanding the mechanics, some basic mechanics. In addition to that, for people who play video games, I'd use those video game concepts and terms to help them understand how they apply to an RPG context. Especially since a lot of video game terms come from RPGs anyway, like hit points. If I wanted to teach role-playing itself, now if the problem wasn't just learning mechanics but actually teaching someone how to become a character, I think I'd probably use some kind of storytelling system that's very rules light. Some system that where you can collaborate and tell a story. It might not have to even be a system. You could just tell stories together and then start adding mechanics later when the people want to kind of gamify it more. It depends on what they want and what you feel comfortable with, the way you feel comfortable with teaching. Question 10. What age group do you think plays these games more than other age groups? I think I saw this somewhere. There was a graph with all the age groups, but I believe it was something like ages 20 to 40 maybe. That's kind of a huge group, but I think those people of those ages play RPGs the most. A good thing is that more teens are joining the ranks, so that's kind of crucial for the growth and evolution of the hobby. So it's always good to have new people, and especially young people. And also, although we still have a ways to go, I think it's great that male RPG enthusiasts are becoming more accepting of women in the hobby. That's definitely something that has needed to be addressed and still needs to be addressed in a lot of places, since it's a significant portion of RPG players are women. So, question 11. What overall benefits do you think a person that plays RPGs has that perhaps a non-gamer wouldn't have or would have less of? In an ideal situation, I'd say that playing RPGs results in an increased sense of sympathy and even empathy, because you're stepping into the shoes of another character that might share something with a real-life person, and then you understand that real-life person better because you were in his or her shoes through that character. Also, I think RPGs can help improvise. They kind of force you to think on your feet, especially if you're running a game. They can help you write better, organize better. They can help you put your foot down when you need to, so you can say that, no, this is the line, you've gone too far, this is what we're doing. And you can kind of control the situation. That can teach you how to keep things under control. Not trying to say that you should be a control freak, but if things seem like they're getting out of hand, playing RPGs or especially running RPGs can teach you how to contain a situation. Then again, having said that, I think one of the key things that RPGs teach you is to roll with the punches. That you don't always have to get your way. The GM doesn't always have to have the story go in direction A if the players are naturally taking the story in direction B. Then again, the players can also try to roll with the punches and not try to put the DM on or the GM on the spot as much. People can even become better public speakers through RPGs because you have to be able to interact socially and convey your ideas as words. And people can even keep their mind sharp just by doing some simple math that's involved in playing RPGs, especially on a regular basis. It's kind of like, people do Sudokus to keep their mind sharp, so RPGs can do the same thing. You have to use your imagination, some math. So, question 12. Have you ever seen an RPG session break out in any violence? Or have you ever seen with your own eyes people becoming more violent after playing RPGs? No violence, thankfully. There was one very heated argument a while ago, like many years ago, with my previous group. But these days, with my new group, we get along like a house on fire. Seriously, it's absolutely great. Everyone's very friendly and very understanding, and it's very much a collaborative effort. No fighting whatsoever. And even no matter how much I disagreed with a person during a game or during any situation in life, I don't think I could resort to violence just to get my way or somehow prove a point or something. That's just not what intelligent people do. The whole games inspire violence argument that raises its ugly head from time to time, it's just uninformed and ridiculous, to be honest. For people who have latent violent tendencies, anything can become a catalyst or a trigger. It doesn't have to be games. It can be absolutely anything. They can listen to a song. Well, I guess, yeah, rock music got demonized once. Films have gotten demonized. Books. Pretty much everything creative has gotten demonized at some point. But yeah, if someone's violent to begin with, or has something bubbling up beneath the surface, they're probably gonna become violent anyway due to something. But it's not the fault of gaming. And then the final question. Do you think RPGs are still seen as much of a negative thing as they once were? Well, like I just talked about the whole demonizing games thing. There are still people who see gaming as a gateway to violence, social isolation, devil worship, or whatever. Some people just see gaming of any kind, except some biannual Monopoly bout, as just a waste of time, or something that children or weird, smelly, basement-dwelling, quote-unquote, neckbeards do. That's just not the case, but that's just how some people see it. It's funny how, like, some very vanilla board games can be completely acceptable, but other games just aren't. Now, nevertheless, gaming in all its glorious different forms has become more accepted. And that's most likely due to the fact that the generations that grew up with video games and RPGs are now in positions of power, and actually have been probably for a few years now. But the fact is that people just will often hate, or at least dismiss what they don't understand, or haven't tried, or just, don't feel inclined to partake in. So that's why it's good to see that the influence of gaming has kind of spread around the world, that it's such a mainstream thing, because now that it's in all walks of life, and if enough of us have gaming in common, that means that the stigma just goes away. If enough people share a thing, then there's nothing to demonize about it. For instance, like football. Everyone watches football. Everyone has a team they root for, at least in the States, and probably England. But then that's football, and there's American football, and blah 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 blah. Not gonna get into the whole soccer football thing. Yeah, that's a thing that's shared by so many people that everyone kind of has a stake in it, at least in some small part. So if we could get more people to just even try an RPG or some kind of gaming, then they'd probably see that, oh, is that all there is to it? Well, that wasn't so bad. It's kind of fun. or something to that effect. I think it's just that people don't understand stuff and then they react negatively, or then they just have some kind of knee-jerk reaction out of fear. So those were my very rambling answers to Tim's questions. I hope you got something out of this. It's probably the same stuff that most people have been saying, but so if that helped at all, then great, and the best of luck with your paper, and I'm sure it will be an interesting read. Cool. More people need to do stuff like that. Keep being awesome.